We are live on Proline TV, the Ourlads Football Network. We're talking some NFC South football, and specifically the Tampa Bay Bucs as they look to defend another NFC South title. That's right, believe it or not. I'm not sure a lot of fans realize this, but the Bucs have made 5 straight playoff appearances and won 4 straight division titles, 3 under Todd Bowles. And James Yarcho is joining us from the Locked On Bucs podcast. How's it going, James?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. This is a great time of year. College football season is already underway. NFL, week from Thursday.
Fantasy draft this weekend.
That's right. Fantasy draft for me as well this weekend. So it's a lot of fun. All right. So we had some big news yesterday across the league with the cuts, and let's start there. So there are some names that the Bucs dropped that not sure was expected, but the combination of some of the players, some of the veterans were cut, and then maybe some of the players that were kept were also maybe very interesting. We'll start on offense. And at wide receiver, actually the 3 players that stuck out, Opeta on the offensive line. I know, things didn't work out for him, of course, with the injury and everything like that. So I'm not sure if that was the reason, but Jarrett and Palmer at wide receiver. How big of a surprise was that at all? Or was that just one of those deals where, hey, it's a numbers crunch. They drafted a couple of guys and the writing was on the wall?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised by either of those guys, honestly. When they drafted Tez Johnson, that was really when I started talking about how Palmer was going to be in danger of losing his job. He really hadn't provided the spark on special teams that the Bucs had hoped he would. And bringing in a guy like Tez Johnson, even though he's smaller, he's much quicker. I wouldn't say faster, but he is quicker, and we saw that on full display in those preseason games. And then Rakim Jarrett, that's a guy that took regular season snaps last year, but every opportunity that he had in the preseason, regardless of who was throwing him the ball, he was dropping them. He was dropping easy passes. He was costing them third down conversions. It was an all in all bad camp and preseason for Jarrett. So he was one of the easiest ones to kind of point to and say he's not going to make the roster. Whereas Palmer, there was some discussions, will he be traded? There were some teams that were allegedly interested. And I don't know if the Bucs tried to move him at all, or if a lot of teams just sat back and said, you guys have an embarrassment of riches at the wide receiver position. We're just going to sit back and we're going to see who you keep and who you let go. So when you saw the emergence of Ryan Miller in that first preseason game against the Titans, and then for him to keep going with it against the Steelers, against the Bills, you kind of knew that he was locked and loaded into that roster. So it really didn't come as any kind of shock that Palmer and Jarrett were let go. What was a surprise was the fact that they kept Cameron Johnson. I didn't think he had all that great of a preseason. He wasn't available for a lot of training camp because of the injury. So I'm not sure if it's just we've seen him before. We know what he's capable of. We have Godwin out. We have Jalen McMillan out. We're gonna keep this guy, or if we're gonna hear around 4:00 that the Bucs were awarded this guy on waivers, and Cam was the first one out in order to make space.
And he'll be on the practice squad, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because again, that's also part of the whole idea. You try to hold on to some of these guys, hoping that teams will then pick up other guys, and then you drop a guy, put him back on the practice squad. Oh, sorry, you've already, filled that position, so you don't have a need now to pillage our guys. So there's a whole bunch of strategy taking place every year at this time. And that'll be interesting. But hey, I mean, bottom line is that there is, I guess, something to develop. You come from Barton College. You're not supposed to go to the NFL the next year and produce. So I'm sure that this is a player that they must feel like they could develop.
Yeah, 100%. And like I said, he's had opportunity in the regular season. He has shown flashes. It was just kind of surprising when you look at the numbers game
Yeah.
that they decided to keep him. And you mentioned Sua Opeta not making the team. I had him on my roster
Okay.
when I did my predictive 53 man. So only keeping 3 backup offensive linemen, even though a lot of these guys are crossed, like Elijah Klein can play any of the 3 interior positions. Charlie Heck, we know, is going to be starting for Tristan Wirfs while he's still out. Chukwuma, an undrafted free agent, he is cross-trained in multiple positions. So even though there's only 3 guys, they have their positions covered. I think it was just a matter of the injuries at wide receiver. They felt they needed to keep that 7th. There's going to be offensive linemen that they can bring back to their practice squad that are not going to be claimed by other teams that they feel comfortable with. And they can say, all right, well, we can do the game day elevation for this guy to give ourselves a little insurance. But yeah, that was really kind of the most surprising thing, was the fact that, they kept 7 wide receivers instead of their typical 6. And I just have to believe that Godwin and McMillan being out played a huge factor in that.
Yeah, and keeping 3 offensive linemen is look, it's early. So I don't expect the Bucs to have 3 offensive linemen, unless, like you said, the opportunity to have a couple of guys down in the practice squad to move up whenever you need to. But Chukwuma was a CFA. So both Chukwuma and Josh Williams make the team. What did you think about that?
I am so excited for Josh Williams. That kid is absolutely electric, and kind of the buzz and the hype around him going into training camp was really similar to what we heard about Sean Tucker. Now, the difference between Williams and Tucker was that Tucker was really using that first year on the team as a way to get healthy again, because when he was signed as an undrafted free agent, he was dealing with injuries. But Josh Williams finally got the opportunity to really shine in that final preseason game. He averaged something like 36 yards per kick return. So I think he made the roster strictly based on the fact that he is an absolutely fantastic kick returner. And again, that's something the Bucs were severely lacking. You're not going to see Bucky Irving back there like you did last year. You're probably not even going to see Sean Tucker back there like you did last year. It's going to be Tez Johnson and Josh Williams as your primary kick returners, in my opinion. So having a guy like that is a really solid combination of speed, quickness, and size is something that the Bucs kind of lack in their running back core. I mean, you have the quickness with Bucky, you have decent size with Rashad, you have definite size with Sean Tucker, but you don't have that speed there to complement those 2 guys. So Williams was a guy that I had locked in on my prediction, because he showed enough on special teams alone to be able to make that roster. So I'm really excited to see how they utilize him coming up this year.
And how surprising was it that they kept Chukwuma?
Not at all. He was really fantastic through the entire process and elevated his play to the point that he couldn't really be ignored. So again, kind of an underdog to start camp and start the preseason, but he was absolutely fantastic every time he got an opportunity. In the joint practices, he was really good. They had joint practices with both the Titans and the Steelers throughout training camp. And then on preseason games, when he would be able to take the field, he made the most of his opportunities and really showed that he can be an asset to the depth of this offensive line.
Yeah, it shows. It really is something when things like this happen, because all of the film work that's done, and everybody, especially when you're talking about a player from a group of 5 program, you wonder, well, what is it? Didn't everybody see this? And I'm sure what it is not all the time, because you got to wait till you get a hold of the kid in camp to begin with. And it's that 3 or 4 month process of having him under professional coaching that can click something in the kid's game. And that's what coaching and development is all about.
Yeah, and I mean, getting to work with guys like Luke Gedeke, and although Tristan Wirfs has been hurt, he's still been in the film rooms. He's still been able, he's been in the positional meetings. He's been able to help a guy like Chukwuma that, you can you can see the raw talent. It's about, turning that raw talent into, basically turning them into a diamond. You have to be able to find a way to get that out of them. When you see that they have the tools, it's just about then getting the knowledge and the proper tactics and things like that. So, he was put in a really good situation with the Bucs offensive line coach, with the offensive line that they have. And, like I said, he made the most of it. He was really, really impressive.
Okay, so how surprising was it when you heard about Teddy Bridgewater being signed, and then the whole Kyle Trask deal is over? So what was? Because most people just thought last year, when Teddy Bridgewater was signed by Detroit late in the season, it was just an emergency thing, and he was going to go back to just being, a civilian. Not the case. He's the official backup quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
It's been a roller coaster, honestly. And when the signing happened, I went on Locked On Bucs and I said, look, Baker's out with a hand contusion. They have gotten 2 full days of watching Kyle Trask run the first team offense. If Jason Light and Todd Bowles and Josh Grizzard liked what they saw, they're not signing Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah.
That was my take on it. Then Kyle Trask goes out in the preseason and he looks better than he has looked ever. And, I wasn't there for all of the training camps and all of that. But when I had been there in person, I would continuously watch Trask and go, he's not it. But this year, I felt that he kind of took that Bridgewater signing a little personal, was a little frustrated, said, all right, I'm going to show you that I can outplay him. And he went out there and he was fantastic. Then they decide that they're going to move on with Teddy Bridgewater. So it wasn't a huge shock. I would say that I was a little surprised. I felt like Trask was going to make the initial roster and they were going to try to get Teddy back on the practice squad. And then at some point in the season, Teddy was going to join the active roster and overtake Kyle Trask. I just didn't think it was going to be this soon, especially after you send Teddy out there with the starters. I use that term loosely against the Steelers, but you had Emeka Egbuka and Jalen McMillan out there. You had Bucky Irving out there to start that game. And then he throws a hospital ball to Jalen McMillan and knocks him out for half the season. Now, credit to Jalen McMillan. He went up and got the ball and he held on to it after he was folded in half like a metal chair. But it was too soon to put him in that situation, but I understood why they put him in that situation because they believed in him being the guy to back up Baker from the jump, the knowledge that he brings, the experience that he brings, all of that. So you sign a guy and after 3 days you have him out there on the field, something bad happened. I don't think that's a precursor for what's going to happen throughout the season. But, Kyle Trask has been with this team. This was his 5th season. Didn't make it to that 5th season, but Bowles has seen more than enough of him. Grizzard saw him all last year. They see him in training camp, and then he gets the opportunity to run with, the starting O-line, the starting receivers, the entire first team offense, and did enough to get Teddy Bridgewater signed.
And with the league, the way that it's so quarterback starved, it'll be interesting to see where he goes. So he'll get an opportunity. He'll be fine. He's getting more. He's young enough, and if he did find a way to maybe improve his game a little bit, then maybe that's a little extra motivation he'll need elsewhere. And sometimes
the obvious landing spot to me, as soon as it happened, was Las Vegas. John Spytek is now there. He was part of the group that drafted Trask. Tom Brady is a part owner. Trask was his backup, and then they turn around and trade for Kenny Pickett. I would take Kyle Trask over Kenny Pickett personally, but I think Trask will get an opportunity somewhere.
Oh, sure. I'm
just not sure what team I can look to and say, you know what, that's going to be the right fit for Kyle Trask. Maybe Carolina. I could absolutely see that reuniting with Dave Canales and that style of offense, which is a little more Trask speed. I think that would be a really interesting fit if they decided to go that route.
Okay, injuries on offense. Godwin. What do you think? When do you expect to see him?
Todd Bowles was on WDAE radio this morning and was asked that very question. And Godwin passed his physical. That was announced by Schefter on Tuesday. Both he and Tristan Wirfs passed their physicals, but Godwin is now trying to ramp himself up, get into football shape. And Todd Bowles said, he thinks it's going to be sooner than later that Godwin is back on the field. And when asked for a little bit more of a firm timeline in typical Bowles fashion, he said it could be week 2, it could be week 5. My thought process on this is I believe the earliest we're going to see Chris Godwin would be week 4 against Philadelphia. I think that's the soonest we will see him get on the field. And even then, he's probably below a 50% snap count in that game. He might even just be used as a decoy. But this is a guy that, you can't just immediately set foot on the field and be ready to play football when you've been out as long as he has. You have to be able to work your way up to game shape. And even then, it's going to take probably another month of him playing games before he starts to look like the Chris Godwin we all know and love. So I would say you're still looking at probably a month before he's back. I would pencil in week 4 as probably the goal, and the earliest we would see him suit up for a game.
Okay. What about Wirfs?
Wirfs, I'm kind of in the same boat. Again, past his physical, that's great. He can start working out. He can start, practicing with the team, which is exactly why, they didn't put these guys on the pup. And there were a lot of Bucs fans that are saying, why are we wasting 2 roster spots on guys that are probably going to miss the first 4 games anyway? Well, the simple answer is if you're on the pup, you can't practice. And the whole idea behind this is to get these guys into practice and start getting themselves caught up so that when they are able to play, they can immediately go out on the field. If you put them on the pup, well, now you're looking at probably after the week 9 bye,
half a season,
either one of them can get back on the field. So I would say for Tristan, you're probably looking at week 4, week 5 as being the time that he'll be able to get on the field, probably closer to week 5. I have a little bit more confidence that Godwin will be able to get on the field before Tristan because, coming off knee surgery, the last thing you want to do is put him in a situation where he re-aggravates that knee and now all of a sudden you lose the best tackle in football for half a season or more. That's going to derail any hopes this team has of winning a Super Bowl or competing for the NFC Championship or anything like that. So I would rather them be overly cautious with Wirfs than try to put him in there too soon. They may have to protect him from himself because Tristan and how competitive he is. He's going to want to be out there as fast as possible. Maybe when he says he feels ready, you say, all right, sit another week.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we'll put you back in.
Okay. How concerned are you? And actually, let me take a look. And we usually do this at the end of the show, but we are talking about a couple of guys that may not be back until week 5. So the schedule up until then, of course, we know the week 1 game is a big game to kick the season off. Back-to-back road games at Houston. There you go, another division winner. Jets at home. That is a good situation there, you would expect. And then the Eagles at home and Seattle on the road with San Francisco. So the schedule, really taking a look at it, there are a couple of tough games, a couple of competitive games. It's not overly hard and it's not overly easy. It's just a normal first 5 or 6 weeks of the schedule looking to me. So it's just what do you think? What record do you think it's important for Tampa Bay to have after the first, say, 5 weeks of the season or even the first 4 weeks of the season before they start getting those 2 back?
I would say if you can split the first 4 games,
okay,
you're in good shape. And I was really concerned. I actually said on a recording I did with the Locked On Falcons host, I said that I was going to pick Atlanta to win week 1 because I was so concerned about Baker not taking any snaps in preseason. We've seen teams, and I use the Bengals as an example of offenses that get off to really slow starts when their starters don't play in the preseason. The Bengals changed that this year. But I was like, that's really concerning to me. I don't need Baker to go out there and play an entire half, but let him get a little bit of action because You can't replicate the game speed or anything like that, even in a joint practice, as much as you may want to try to. Then I learned that Michael Penix also didn't take any preseason snaps. And I'm like, okay, well, I trust Baker to start off as close to normal as possible without preseason snaps than I do Michael Penix. But that's going to be a tough game. Atlanta did a lot to revamp their defense, and starting on the road against a team that swept you last year with Kirk Cousins.
Sure.
That's pretty concerning. And then, Bucs fans know all about the primetime woes over the last couple of years for the Bucs and Baker Mayfield. So that Houston game, of course, concerns me as well. I don't know what it is about Philadelphia. They cannot figure out Todd Bowles. Jalen Hurts dreads seeing Todd Bowles because he just can't seem to figure out how to beat that defense.
Wow.
So that's going to be a really interesting game for sure.
Okay.
But I would say if you can start 2-2, then you get to a little bit softer portion of the schedule coming out of the bye. You have an opportunity there to still come away with 10 or 11 wins on the season.
Okay. Let's move on. Oh, and for fantasy fans out there, and you're one of them, you're drafting this weekend. So when do you start thinking about drafting Chris Godwin?
Ooh, double-digit rounds.
Okay.
I love Chris, and I love what he was doing for my fantasy team last year. But if I will say that, and I can say this confidently because nobody in my league watches any of my Bucs stuff. Not even my own children. Draft Emeka Egbuka. I think his ADP right now is in like the 9th round. Reach. Take him in the 7th. Take him on the 6-7 turn. You want Emeka Egbuka on your fantasy team, especially the first month. If you can grab him, and he's going to fill that Chris Godwin role. He's going to. It's not going to surprise me at all if Emeka Egbuka leads this team after 4 weeks in receptions and yards, potentially even touchdowns. He is going to be hyper targeted. So if you're drafting this weekend, make sure you leave your draft with Egbuka. And then if he catches fire that first month, maybe you can trade him. You can trade high because Godwin's coming back.
Sure.
It might start to dwindle his targets a little bit.
Yeah.
But Egbuka is going to be a star.
Oh yeah. And I actually have the 9th pick in my year to year. And so like you said, on a swing around, maybe that works for me somewhere 6th or the 7th round. I'll be jotting that down. By the way, speaking of fantasy and the running backs, do you expect things to be the same as last year? Do you expect Sean Tucker to get more involved at all? What do you think about the way that the running backs will be split this year compared to last year?
I think it's going to be a similar split to what we saw. If you just take Rashad's opportunities from the first half of the year and you place Bucky into that role like he had the second half of the year, I think largely it's going to stay about like that. So Bucky's going to get 45 to 50% of the opportunities. Rashad's probably going to get another 35 to 40. Tucker's probably going to be a little bit more involved, not involved enough that you're going to want him in fantasy unless Bucky or Rashad go down.
Or if you have a dynasty team and you're thinking about the future.
Dynasty. Yeah. A dynasty would be good. But I mean, if you're in a dynasty, I would almost think about taking Josh Williams over Sean Tucker. But yeah, I mean, those guys are going to get limited opportunities. I expect it to be 80 to 85% between Bucky and Rashad, with obviously Irving getting the majority of those touches.
Okay. Let's now move on to defense. And the cuts that were made on defense that stand out, Anthony Walker, Jose Ramirez. I guess not major surprises, right? Or was Anthony Walker a surprise?
No, not a surprise at all. The only thing I was surprised about was that they didn't have him as an injury designation.
Okay.
Todd Bowles spoke very, very highly of him, but he missed all of training camp with an injury. So it didn't surprise me, especially with the way that both Nick Jackson and John Bullock stepped up during training camp, during preseason. it didn't take me by surprise at all. And then same with Jose Ramirez. We've been hearing about Jose Ramirez's potential for a couple of years, and it's never been realized. So again, Marquise Watts outplayed him. That wasn't really a surprise either. The biggest surprise to me was Bryce Hall. And maybe it's because Josh Hayes is such an ace on special teams. He is really their number one guy on the coverage units, that's what edged him out over Hall. But I mean, Hall dealt with a season-ending injury in week 1 last year. He's still coming back from that. Hopefully they can, get him back on the practice squad and elevate him when needed. But yeah, as far as the defense was concerned, outside of, keeping 5 safeties, but it's not too different from last year. They kept 1 fewer corner and 1 more safety than they did compared to last season. And then you have guys like Christian Izien, Tyke Smith, Rashad Wisdom that can all play corner. So you have these guys a lot like they have their offensive line cross-trained. You have these guys that can play multiple positions in bowl secondary, and they feel that they have a lot of depth across the board because of that.
So how we have Morrison and Izien in red, which means there's some sort of injury there. So what's their status?
Morrison has been dealing with a hamstring injury for the last couple of weeks. It happened the week leading up to the second preseason game. Bowles talked about it after practice on Tuesday, said that he has started running, has started moving around a little bit. He just hasn't officially practiced yet. No, he also said that there's no worries about whether or not he'll be available for week 1. Sounds like he will. As for Christian Izien, he's dealing with an oblique injury. So Bowles has said that it's pretty much a pain management thing for him. Might be one of the reasons that they kept Rashad Wisdom on the 53-man roster.
I was going to ask you about that. Was that a surprise? One of the surprise additions?
Wisdom was a guy, when I did my prediction, I had said, if I get one wrong, I feel like it's going to be keeping Kayvon Merriweather over Rashad Wisdom. And that's not a slight to Merriweather. I felt that Merriweather had outperformed Wisdom in the preseason, in training camp, but Wisdom fits the athletic profile of guys like Antoine and Tyke and Izien much more than Merriweather does. So he seemed to be a better fit, but just not quite playing as well as Merriweather. I was thrilled that he was going to be on the team because I really, really like him a lot. I think he's getting better and better every time I see him. He's continuously growing in that role. So I was happy. I wasn't surprised. I was more just like, sweet. This kid deserves this chance, and I cannot wait to see him get to show everybody why.
And do you think we're going to end up seeing some of the younger guys in the secondary, like Funderburk? We'll see him on the practice squad?
Yeah, I think so. He was called upon last year with all the injuries in the secondary, and it was a steep learning curve. It was baptism by fire for Funderburk, and he got lit up a couple of times early on, but you saw him settle into his role. You saw him start to understand and grasp the defense and his responsibilities a little bit better. And by the end of the season, you had some confidence in him. So I'd like to see him continue on that trajectory. Only way to do that is make sure he's back on the practice squad. So he's one of the guys that I've kind of circled that I'm hoping I don't hear anything about when the waivers go through and the Bucs can get him back.
I doubt it. Yeah,
he's a good kid, and that's one of the things about these practice squads that everybody's worried about losing guys that their team released. Well, 95% of these guys are going to come back to their own team on the practice squad because they've already invested the time and the money in them. You're going to see a couple of changes, but probably not very many.
Yeah, because it's a big commitment, you have to take someone off another practice squad. So it's not easy. You better be right. By the way, Josh Hayes, was that a pickup? Was that did he make the team because of special teams?
I think so. If Josh Hayes has to go out there at corner, things have gone horribly wrong.
Okay. All right.
But as far as special teams is concerned, he is the best on the team when it comes to these coverage units. So
okay.
I understand kind of that direction. It's the same as John Bullock getting the nod over Nick Jackson. I thought Nick Jackson outperformed Bullock on the defensive side of the ball, but Bullock was such an incredible special teamer that I think that when you get to the point that you're splitting hairs, that was the reason that they went with Bullock. And again, Nick Jackson, I hope he's back on the practice squad because he was really, really impressive. And those two guys are a big reason why Anthony Walker Jr. is working out for the Colts today.
Yeah, and you do wonder with Jackson that it might have also been, if there was a 50-50 split, it might have also just been an age thing. Like, the chances are we're not going to lose either guy, but we have a better chance of losing the younger guy than the older guy. It's probably what it is, but that's just a guess. Okay. Who's the gunner on the team, by the way?
The gunner?
Yeah.
Hayes.
Hayes is. Okay. So he's the guy. He is the top special teams gunner on the team. And what about Watts? Surprised that Watts made the team? Is he also mainly there is he very good special teams?
I think he made it just because they needed a deeper edge rotation. And Braswell he's been kind of meh, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Well,
he's shown flashes.
Okay.
He's one of those guys that you see the potential. You see the flashes, you see those times where you're like, "Oh, okay. Let's start to put that together a little bit more." But he's so wildly inconsistent that I think Bowles felt we need another guy. We can't have our edge rush rotation just be Reddick, Diaby, Braswell, and Nelson. We need Watts here. We need somebody else that can come in, maybe light the fire under Braswell, or we're going to be moving on from Braswell kind of situation.
So, and again, this just shows you how important, or the big loss, even though the Bucs aren't loaded with injured players. I mean, I've seen a lot more injured players here and in reserve on other teams. So this is not even though there's still guys that are, like we just talked about with Godwin and Wirfs. It's not like the Bucs are injury free, but it's a significant one. Losing Walker because of that pass rush depth that was really important, which is the reason they drafted him.
Yeah, that one hurt. Same with JJ Roberts. I think if Roberts stays healthy, Rashad Wisdom may not be on this roster because Roberts was just that impressive, both at safety and in special teams. So that was a huge loss for the Bucs because he was going to be a weapon for Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles talks a lot about his chess pieces and guys that he likes to move all over the place. Roberts was starting to kind of embrace that role as part of the second team defense and was really making a name for himself. So that one hurt. David Walker for sure hurt. We were excited about his potential. And then, of course, Jalen McMillan. There were an awful lot of people after the draft saying, why in the world would the Bucs waste their first round pick on Emeka Egbuka? Well, you have no Godwin. You have no McMillan for half the season now. Those critics were very quickly quieted.
Yeah. We didn't talk much about McMillan, but he is the only one designated to return. So we expect him back. What, about week 9?
Yeah, after the week 9 bye, I think is really when that's going to happen.
Okay.
A severe neck strain is not something that you want to push or mess around with. No. So, missing the first 8 games and then getting that week 9 bye, I think week 10 is really the smartest decision for them to be able to bring him back.
Okay. But how's Antoine Winfield? Is he healthy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he dealt with he did have an injury that kept him out a couple of days. It might have been a hamstring. They all run together now, man. Like the Bucs have had so many players missing practices and preseason games with injuries that they all start to run together. Like Cade Otton missed the first 2 or 3 weeks before he came back. A lot of players in the secondary had missed time with injuries. So, but yeah, he's back and participating in practice.
Okay. How are some of the other new guys looking? Hassan Reddick, Elijah Roberts.
Elijah Roberts actually led the NFL in the preseason in pass rush win rate among rookies. So his pass rush win rate was the top rookie of all edge rushers, even though he's technically a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
He's not your stand-up edge. He's your
No.
3-4 defensive end. But he was absolutely fantastic. Reddick, he looks as advertised. He's winning his matchups. He's bringing along the younger guys. He's been a fantastic addition to this defense. And then Jacob Parrish has been phenomenal. Again, as advertised, he's gritty, he's physical, he's smart, he's quick. He's going to be a problem for some of these offenses when he lines up at the nickel spot.
Give me a breakout player on offense and defense. Somebody, a veteran player that is going to take that next step this year.
A veteran breakout on offense and on defense. On offense, I'm going to go with Cade Otton. Yeah, he started his breakout last year because he had to, right? Evans was out, Godwin was out, McMillan was in and out of the lineup. You see the same situation now. You have Mike Evans and Emeka Ibuka and probably Sterling Shepard as your starting 3 wide receivers. Cade Otton's going to get a lot of opportunity. He's going to get a lot of third down targets. So I expect a really big year from him. I wish I could say Rachaad White. It's a contract year, but I just don't think he's going to be as big of a factor in the offense as Cade Otton will be, especially early on. And then defensively, maybe this is a cop out. You can call me on it if you want to. I'll take Kalijah Kancey. Yeah, this is a player that missed the first 4 or 5 games in his first 2 years. Still was an absolute monster on the defensive line there next to Vita Vea. I would say Kalijah Kancey could be the player that ends up with double-digit sacks over Hassan Reddick this year. And a lot of that has to do with the addition of Hassan Reddick, the attention that he's going to have to garner from opposing offenses. But Kalijah Kancey is just so fast and so strong that he's going to win a lot of the one-on-one matchups that he'll get because Reddick is lining up outside of him.
That's a great point. And so even though, we do normally in 3-4 defenses look on the edges, the stand-up guys, the fact is the Bucs, maybe they get a little bit or a lot of help from Kancey, maybe even a little bit from Roberts to make up for maybe, of course, not having enough depth with the loss of their rookie Walker. Okay, let's get to, we've kind of already talked a little bit about week 1. We'll save that for last. Here's the Bucs win total number for this year. It's about 9.5. And I actually think this is a little low for me. I would think you would think the same thing. And that's because the way I'm looking at it is, wait a second. So if I lose the bet, then they're 9-8. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they'd have to have a bunch of injuries, and I'm not gambling that. So why wouldn't I think they'd be able to win 10 games?
I don't have outside of injury, this team is going to win at least 10 games. Now, before Wirfs went down, before we knew that Godwin was out for the first month, before McMillan went down for half a season, I was calling this a 12-win football team. There wasn't an offense that they couldn't go toe-to-toe with. There's a lot of improvements on defense. It's all about the injuries. They do have a tough schedule, because they have a first place schedule. What else are you going to do? But this is a ridiculously talented football team. So if they win less than 10 games, I would be legitimately shocked, as with the caveat of, were there major injuries? Did they lose Mike Evans again for 2 months? Did Baker go down? Did Tristan not come back? Did Levante or Vita go down for a month or two? Those kinds of things can add up and obviously derail a season. But yeah, this is a football team that's going to make noise all season long and into the postseason.
Yeah, because look, even though the South is not one of the top divisions, it's getting better. There's no doubt Atlanta and Carolina are going to be better. Yeah. You do get the luxury of having the Saints. So that's 2 wins. And then you also get the AFC East. You got Miami, the Jets, and New England. So even though there's some tough teams on the schedule, there are enough of those other games that I just mentioned that would lead you to believe that a really good team like the Bucs are should be able to win at least 10 games. And I would actually have no problem saying, you know what? I'm not even doing this. I have no problem starting here with 11 plus 155. Just give me that. And then if I want to go with a little bit more, I can do that too at plus 250 as the bonus. Instead of going 9.5 and 10.5, I'm going to go 10.5, 11.5.
Yeah. And especially if we get word that, Wirfs and Godwin are on track to return before, that first 4-week mark, if they return within those first 4 games, I'm even more confident that this is probably closer to an 11-12 win team than just 10 or 11. But people continue to sleep on the Bucs, and like
they do that. Yes,
they get the built-in excuse of, oh well, the division's terrible. It's not even the worst division in football. As you said, I'm not totally sold on Michael Penix. I wasn't sold on him in the draft process. So that one I'm kind of wait and see. But I knew, on numerous occasions said that Carolina is going to be a sneaky team this year.
They are.
They may not be over 500, but I could see them being a 7-win team and really surprising some people throughout the season, especially teams that don't take them as seriously as they should. Unfortunately for the Saints, they're a dumpster fire this year. But if you're a Saints fan watching this, I would be so excited about 2026.
Oh, yeah.
I think I like the coaching staff that they have there. I like a lot of the young talent that they have there. If I can get my quarterback in a much better quarterback draft than 2025 was, I'm excited about the future of the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, because they'll have as long as Arch comes in too. Because even if Arch doesn't come in, you still have Nussmeier, you still have Alar, and who's the other kid? Klubnik. So just imagine Arch comes in.
Yeah.
If Arch comes in, the first 4 draft picks will be quarterbacks. Because I think those 3 guys I just named are going to be the top 3 picks of the draft. So
the battle between the Saints and the Colts for Arch Manning is going to be one of the best storylines in the NFL this year.
Yeah, that will be pretty funny, won't it? But the NFL is loving it either way.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. It's just like a race for luck all those years ago when he was, the guy, and we were all sitting on the edge of our seat waiting to see which team was bad enough to get Andrew Luck. That's how teams or fans are going to feel about watching this battle for Arch Manning and see if he can live up to the name. God knows I'm going to be rooting for him on Saturday.
Well, the Saints are going to have a much better position because we know they're going to be easily. I can't imagine. I don't think anybody can imagine the Saints are not going to get the first pick in the draft this year. So Colts, if things go their way, the Colts could actually be a playoff team if things go their way. I don't think that's going to happen because of the quarterback situation, but they got a really much better defense than people think. And John Taylor can have a big year. They got a good offensive line. It's just the quarterback is holding them back. But what I mean is that they're going to win they could win 4, 5, 6 more games than the Saints. It's possible. And so they're going to have to put up a lot more collateral than the Saints would because the Saints would be sitting there anyway. And if they're the first pick of the draft, they ain't going anywhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Well,
unless they're the second pick. So. Which I don't even know if that, I don't know who would be the first pick if the Saints are the second. I don't even want to imagine what that team would be going through. But the Bucs are minus 120 to win the division. And if you want to do some specials, and I think, matter of fact, the special that I would do myself is I would actually consider doing, one of these to tell you the truth, because the Bucs being at minus, I might as well just pick one of these. And I'm a little bit surprised that with the Falcons being, what are they, double almost to Carolina, that this is not that different. So anyway, what do you think? Atlanta definitely second place, or do you think Carolina can give Atlanta a run for their money?
Nobody loves to implode more than the Atlanta Falcons. Last year's a perfect example. Everything for the Falcons had to go wrong And everything for the Bucs had to go right in order for the Bucs to overtake Atlanta and win the division. And Atlanta imploded all over themselves. They have tons of talent. I don't know if it's just ingrained in the Falcons' DNA that they just choke away anything positive that franchise has. So I would actually, just for the sake of doing it, I would do the Bucs Panthers for those better odds. Because again, I think Carolina can be sneaky good. And the Bucs and Panthers play twice in like the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season. And those could be some really, really important games. When it comes to the division. But I would say I feel like Atlanta should finish second. But if they don't, I would not be surprised in the slightest.
The Bucs are 25-1 to win the Super Bowl, which puts them at about 12-1 to win the NFC. Just double check that. 11-1 to win the NFC. And I know that Jim Feist, my partner here on the channel, one of the legends of the gambling industry, actually has already put in his bet for Tampa Bay and for Baker Mayfield to win the MVP.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because again, talking good numbers. So it's all about value. Because let's see, Baker. Where's Baker to win the MVP? Baker's 25-1.
25-1, yeah.
Which isn't bad. So
now,
because you got to think if Tampa Bay has that big year, obviously they're going to give it to Baker. So it's just a matter of whether or not, like a team like the Eagles, come back down to earth a little bit, which is entirely possible. So yeah, I don't think that's all crazy to think that could happen.
I got mine in right before free agency started. And so I got the Bucs to win the Super Bowl at plus 3,700.
Oh, even better.
Yeah. Look, I think that the Bucs have the talent to win the NFC, get to a Super Bowl, and then based on the matchup, we'll see what happens. What I don't understand is teams like the Bengals, who we all know that their offense is electric, but we also know that T. Higgins is going to miss a quarter of the season and their defense is going to be absolutely terrible.
Yes.
Why do they have better odds? I understand the hype around Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders, and I think they are a really solid football team, but this is the same hype that we heard about CJ Stroud. After his rookie campaign, let's pump the brakes a little bit and see if he can do it back-to-back years. I don't understand how the Chargers are ahead of him, and I will die on the hill that Justin Herbert is not better than Baker Mayfield because he's shown that he's not better.
Not in the postseason, not right now at least. Nope.
So there's some teams with better odds to win the Super Bowl that I just don't understand being ahead of the Bucs. But like we talked about, teams are sleeping on them, and once again, Tampa,
every year.
And that's how they like it.
Yeah, exactly right.
Jason Light keeps a running list of people that say that they're not going to win or they're going to have a losing record or this player's not going to be any good or this draft was bad or whatever the case is. But he has a running bulletin board every year. So that's how they like it. They love proving people wrong. And I think they're going to do it again this year.
Now, Gabe, even though he's predicting 3-1 to start the season, is predicting a loss to Atlanta. And do you think that that's because, and I think there are other Bucs fans that maybe feel the same way. I mean, hey, when you have a division opponent that you're struggling to beat, it's more obvious to the fan base than it is to outsiders, those division matchups, where those streaks go. Is that basically it? Is that you think there's a lack of confidence as far as fans are concerned with the matchup with Atlanta?
I don't think so. You go back to those two Atlanta games last year, and yes, Kirk Cousins threw all over them. But the Bucs had the game in Atlanta won, and they are the ones that threw it away. Levante got an interception late in that game, and the Bucs could have basically iced the clock away. Instead, they cough it up. Atlanta gets the ball back, and they march down the field with ease in order to win the game. And then in the second one, you have the worst replay review of all time where Antoine Winfield Jr. clearly knocks the ball out of Pitt's hands before he crosses the end zone. That should have been a turnover. Instead, it's a touchdown, and the Bucs lose. I think they lost that one by like 5. So, again, their defense got better. Bijan Robinson is always a problem. I love watching Drake London play, but I don't know if I buy into Penix, and I especially don't know if I buy into Penix to be able to read and decipher and beat a Todd Bowles defense in his first start of the season. I know he got some starts last year, but wasn't overly impressive in those either. So I think those two teams are the most evenly matched in the division when you look at just head-to-head matchups. But I wouldn't say that the Bucs are going to have a run against the Falcons like they did against the Saints for all those years where they just never, ever beat them.
Yeah. So it's so in that case, by the way, the line is now up to 2.5. Tampa Bay. Are you surprised by they're almost a 3-point road favorite against a team who beat them twice last year?
No. I think top to bottom, the Bucs are the more talented team.
Oh yeah, I agree.
It's one of those situations where the odds makers are going to look at it and maybe they're saying, well, we're going to make a ton of money because people are going to bet -2.5 on the Bucs and the Falcons are going to win. Or it's the sheer fact of, again, the questions around Penix. I think that's really what it boils down to is one quarterback has proven that he can win, and get into the postseason. The other quarterback has not proven anything at the NFL level yet. And, didn't take any snaps in the preseason. They have a beat up offensive line and, their offensive line is in even worse shape than Tampa's is without Tristan Wirfs. So when you start to look at protecting an unknown quarterback against that defense, the Bucs should be the favorites.
And by the way, speaking of the protection, you're okay with Heck for a month being able to hold the fort. Are you concerned about that?
Yes. I'm concerned about it. I would feel a lot more comfortable if School was still with Tampa, but Minnesota signed him knowing that he was going to have to start. And so he took that job knowing he was going to get that opportunity right out of the gate. That opportunity wasn't available for him when free agency began. So we'll see. I would hope that they draw up a lot of protections where they have Ko Kieft or Devin Culp or Payne Durham over on that side of the line to help Charlie Heck out. Might run a lot of really quick routes and get the ball out of Baker's hand as fast as possible early in the season. But yeah, I hope he performs well. You just got to tread water, Charlie. Just tread water until Tristan gets back.
Because Atlanta doesn't have a great pass rush. So I wouldn't worry about that. Houston is a good defense. Jets have a good defense, and we know the Eagles do. So that's really where I guess we're going to find things out. But what do you think? 3-1, 2-2?
I would lean more towards 2-2, but they absolutely could finish 3-1 after that first month. I think they beat Atlanta. I think they probably lose to Houston. They beat the Jets and then probably lose to Philadelphia if you don't have Tristan there. But then again, Todd Bowles knows how to make Jalen Hurts' life a complete nightmare. So I'd say 2-2 is safer. 3-1 is absolutely in the realm of possibility.
James, I appreciate it as always. Thank you for doing this. I look forward to talking to you during the season as well, especially if it's a long season into the playoffs, which I certainly hope it is. The Bucs are a nice team to get behind because they keep making me look smart, at least, by keep picking them to win the division. So I feel good about that. And Baker's on my dynasty team as well. So I'm a Buck fan every time I watch them. It's a good reason. And you've got your podcast, the Locked On Bucs podcast. You're doing that now. How often?
5 days a week.
Okay.
Basically from now until June, 5 days a week. So
post-game shows?
Yeah. schedule permitting, because yeah, as you and I were talking off air, my son's a hockey player, lots of traveling over weekends. So as often as I can, I will go live after their games. If I have to watch it on a delay because we're traveling or whatever, I'll go live as soon as I can. But yeah, by and large, and primetime games, I'll go live right after. So yeah, post game reaction shows, and then all throughout the week preview shows. We do a really fun thing where we do crossover episodes where the host of the two teams facing each other will get on and talk to one another about how they see the game playing out. So you get to learn a little bit more about the opponent. So yeah, Monday through Friday, Sunday through Friday, however you want to view it, over at Locked On Bucs on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts.
Awesome. Thanks, James. Again, I look forward to talking to you during the season. And look in the description of this video. You're going to find the links of how you can hook up with James' social media as well as the podcast. And we'll be back actually later today to talk about the Raiders at 5 Eastern and the Bills at 8 Eastern as we try to get all 32 teams in before next Thursday. So again, James, I appreciate it. And I'll talk to you during the season.
All right. Thanks so much, Greg.
You got it, James.